My son, Michael, didn't yell. He didn't slam his hand on the table. He didn't even sound angry. He just looked at me across dinner and said, in the calmest voice, "Mom, you eat for free here." And the whole room changed. My granddaughter, Emily. My daughter-in-law, Lauren, gave that small, uneasy laugh people give when they want something cruel to pass as awkward instead of wrong, and something inside my chest went very still. Now, if a stranger had said that to me, it would have been insulting. If a neighbor had said it, it would have been offensive. But it was my son, the same son my husband, Arthur, and I raised. The same son we carried through hard years. The same son I trusted enough to leave my own home for after I buried Arthur, my husband of 42 years. That matters, because when a woman has just lost the man she built her life with, when she has sold the house that held almost every memory of that life, a sentence like that does not land like one insult. It lands like the floor shifting when she has moved into her son's home, believing family is still the safest place grief can go. I smiled, not because I was calm, and not because I wasn't hurt. I smiled because by then, the sentence itself was no longer the whole story. So I excused myself from the table. I stepped into the hallway, and I made one quiet phone call. It was the moment I stopped pretending I still didn't understand what kind of story I was standing in. "Charles Whitaker," I said when he answered. "It's Joan. I think it's time." That was not the beginning. Some stories don't begin with a huge explosion. They begin with one quiet sentence. And that is enough to make a whole person go still. This is Not Alone Anymore, a place where we sit with stories like this. Not only to retell what happened, but also to bring comfort to those affected, but to look more closely at what really hurt, what really changed, and why some of the deepest wounds inside a family arrive so quietly. If stories like this speak to you, please like the video and subscribe to the channel. Tell me honestly in the comments. And if you're listening from somewhere in the world, leave your city or country below. And before we go any further, I want to ask you something plainly. When a son looks at his mother and says, "Mom, you eat for free here," do you call that ungrateful? Or has it already become cruelty? I really do want to know who is sitting here with us today. So take me back, not to the whole story at once, just to the first small thing that feels different now. The first moment care stopped feeling entirely like care. It wasn't dramatic. That's the part people don't always understand. Nothing shattered. Nobody exploded. There wasn't one big scene where everything suddenly became obvious. It was smaller than that. It started the way many bad things inside families start. Quietly, politely, in rooms that still looked warm. Before the hidden mail, before the transfer, before that sentence at the dinner table. Why did moving in with your son feel right? Because after Arthur died, being alone stopped feeling noble and started feeling unbearable. We had been married 42 years, the same brick house, the same creaking stair, the same pencil marks on the wall where we measured Michael as he grew. Arthur was the careful one, an engineer, folders for everything, plans for everything. And then one October night, he was gone. After that, the house changed. His chair looked wrong without him in it. His coffee mug looked like evidence. Every room kept handing me back the life I had lost. So when Michael started calling more, when he said I shouldn't be by myself so much, when he said there was a room downstairs and the children would love having me there, I said yes. Not because I had no options, Because grief lowers your defenses when love is the voice asking.
So you didn't walk into that house feeling defeated?
No. Broken in some ways, yes. Lonely, yes. But not defeated. I went there because I wanted morning voices again. Children in the house. A reason not to sit with silence every evening. But I also arrived already trying not to be too much. Before anyone asked me to make myself smaller, I was already doing it. I stayed in my room longer than I needed to. I waited until the kitchen was clear before making tea. I asked before doing ordinary things. I kept saying, whatever works best, even when it didn't really work best for me.
And in the beginning, those two things did not feel dangerous. Being grateful and becoming smaller.
In the beginning, the house still sounded like welcome. There were the usual reassurances. Your family, don't worry about anything. We're glad you're here. And the children were loving. Emily would sit beside me with a workbook or a story. Lucas was noise, motion, toy cars underfoot, the ordinary life of a house with children in it. And Michael, at least at first, still sounded like my son. That matters too. Because betrayal hurts more when it comes wrapped in a decent history. The boy Arthur helped through math at the kitchen table. The young man we quietly helped when his business failed. The son we believed had seen enough sacrifice to recognize it. That is part of why I trusted the house longer than I should have. And Lauren, his wife, seemed organized, capable, practical. At first, that felt reassuring. When the Cleveland house sold, I let Michael help with much of the paperwork because I could barely think beyond the next day. I let him explain what needed signing. I let him move through things I should have understood more clearly. Why wouldn't I? He was my son. And that is part of why what came later hurt the way it did. When trust runs that deep, you do not only miss danger, you help build the conditions that let you miss it.
Once that began, once the room was easier if you were smaller, what were the first signs that something deeper was shifting?
It was never one thing. That's the hard part to explain to people who want one clean villain and one clean beginning. There wasn't one early scene where I could point and say, there. That's where it all changed. At first, it was tone, timing, permission showing up where there had never needed to be permission before. That's what makes quiet disrespect so dangerous. It grows in pieces small enough to deny. I remember one afternoon I made grilled cheese for Emily and Lucas after school. Nothing special, just children being hungry and a grandmother doing what grandmothers do. Lauren walked into the kitchen, watched me for a second, and said lightly, "Oh, you don't need to do that. I usually handle meals." I smiled and said I only thought the children might be hungry. She nodded, but there was a correction in her voice. "Next time, just ask me first. I like to keep track of what we're using." That was Lauren's way. Not loud, not rude on the surface, just efficient enough that the room kept shifting in her favor. A few weeks later, she mentioned electricity rates and suggested I wait until later to run laundry. Again, practical, reasonable, easy to defend. But over time, all those little adjustments moved in the same direction. Lauren handled meals, Lauren handled groceries, Lauren preferred things done a certain way. And I, without fully noticing it at first, started asking permission for pieces of normal life.
And Michael?
Michael got quieter, busier, more distracted. Even when he was home, part of him seemed elsewhere. At dinner, he would ask, "How was your day, Mom?" And I would say, "Quiet." And that would usually be the end of it. I kept telling myself I was lucky. I had a place to live. I had grandchildren who hugged me in the morning. I had a roof and family around me. Many women had less. And that is another trap older women fall into too easily. We compare our pain downward until we no longer believe we are allowed to name it at all. So I tried harder to be useful. I folded laundry, I organized backpacks, I wiped counters, I helped where I could. And the strangest part was this: the only people who continued treating me as if I unquestionably belonged were the children. But among the adults, something else was forming. One night I heard Lauren mention groceries. We need to be realistic about what this is costing. Nobody said my name.
Yeah.
They didn't need to.
Yeah.
And Michael, my son, Michael did not sound cruel.
Yeah.
He sounded tired, embarrassed maybe, but he didn't stop the logic either. That mattered. Because what hurt me was not only what Lauren was willing to say, it was what Michael was willing to let stand. It was the principle of the matter.
So by then, the cost wasn't only money.
No. By then, it had moved into something harder to name. It showed up in small ways first. A correction in Lauren's voice. A glance between them after I left the room. A decision already half made by the time it reached me. I started noticing that I was asking permission for things I never would have asked permission for before. Using the kitchen, doing laundry, making something simple for the children. And then the pass. And then the mail changed. At first I told myself it was nothing. Maybe there just wasn't much coming. Maybe I was imagining it. But after a while, I realized I almost never received my mail directly. Michael got to the mailbox first most days. And whenever I asked, the answer was always some version of the same thing. Nothing important, Mom, just junk mail. The words were harmless.
Yeah.
The tone wasn't.
Yeah.
It always sounded finished.
Yeah.
As if the subject had already been handled before I ever reached it.
Yeah.
Then one day, I got to the mailbox first. There were only a few envelopes inside. An advertisement, something for Lauren, and one envelope from First National Bank of Cleveland addressed to me. I stood there in the driveway holding it, and I felt my heartbeat change, because suddenly all the small things behind me stood a little straighter. I opened it alone. At first, I did not understand everything, but I understood enough. There was a transfer request attached to an account I did not remember authorizing anyone to touch. That was the moment I stopped being only uncomfortable. I became watchful.
So the hidden mail mattered because it made the pattern visible.
Yes. Before that, everything could still be softened. A phrase, a cost comment, a household rule, a little less space. But the bank envelope was different. It was paper. It was access. It was process. And maybe that is why I heard Arthur's voice so clearly in my head right then.
Yeah.
Paperwork matters.
Yeah.
He used to say it all the time. I used to think he was overly cautious. Standing there with that envelope in my hand, I did not think that anymore. I think that was the moment suspicion became action. Not because I understood everything yet, because I understood enough to stop looking away. Then the clues started landing faster. Emily came home from school early one afternoon and repeated something she had overheard. Lauren had said, "Once everything transfers, we won't have to worry anymore." Another day, I passed Michael's home office and saw printed pages on his desk. Just for a second, but long enough to read the words authorization and transfer. Then I heard him mutter, almost to himself, "Just needs the final approval." Whitaker had not yet explained anything to me, but those words stayed with me. And once that begins, a person is never standing in the same room the same way again.
So that was the point where you stopped only feeling something and started looking for proof. Was that when you called Charles Whitaker?
Yes. By then, I knew I didn't need reassurance. I needed the truth. Charles Whitaker had handled Arthur's legal work for years. So when I sat across from him with that envelope in my hand, he didn't treat it like junk mail. He treated it like evidence. He read it once. Then he opened a thick file and said, "Arthur never explained the trust in detail?" I told him no. That was the first time I saw the Wright family trust with my own eyes. Charles explained only what mattered. Arthur had placed a large part of our assets inside that structure years earlier. Michael had limited access to certain things, but limited access was not ownership. And a transfer of this size could not go through without me. I remember asking him very plainly, "So who has the authority here?" And Charles said, "You do, Mrs. Wright. You are the primary beneficiary." That was the moment the whole story changed for me. Because for months, I had been living in Michael's house like a dependent guest. But on paper, that was not the position Arthur had left me in. I asked Charles the question that mattered most. "Can this transfer go through without me?" He said no, firmly, beat. And then he said something else that changed the way I saw the whole house. If Michael believes you do not understand the trust, he may be expecting you to sign the authorization as routine paperwork when it reaches final stage. That sentence made the whole strategy visible, not theft in the dramatic sense, something quieter. He would wait until the authorization was ready. He would place it in front of me. He would rely on the version of me that still trusted too quickly and read too little. Charles told me not to alert them yet. Watch, listen, gather information, let the request move to final stage. Then we would know exactly what we were dealing with. So I did, and once I began watching, the pattern sharpened. Lauren mentioned timing more than once, then deadline, then processing window. I passed the office one evening and heard her whisper, "If it clears before the end of the month, we'll be fine." That told me something crucial. They were counting on the transfer, not hoping for it, counting on it. Then the authorization arrived. An envelope from the bank, thicker than ordinary mail, waiting on the kitchen table. I carried it quietly to my room and opened it alone. Trust asset reallocation authorization, the same number I had seen referenced before. The same amount Charles had already warned me would represent a major shift. And at the bottom of the page was the line that mattered most. Primary beneficiary signature required. My name printed clearly beneath it. I remember just looking at it for a long time. Because the waiting was over. The trap had finally reached the point where it needed me. And suddenly the whole plan was obvious. Michael had already completed most of what he could complete on his own. The bank had prepared the rest. All that remained was my signature. That was the cruelty of it, not force, not shouting, not some dramatic theft in the dark, an expectation built around my silence.
So when the authorization finally arrived, you already knew more than Michael and Lauren thought you knew. Take me into that kitchen.
It was almost unbearably ordinary. Emily was doing homework at the table.
Yeah.
Lauren was near the counter. Michael came in trying to look casual. That kind of calm often means a person has already decided what they need from you. He asked whether anything had come in the mail that day. I said yes. He hesitated just long enough for me to see it. Then Lauren stepped in, lightly. That must be the bank update. Bank update. Paperwork. Routine. By then, I had begun to hear those words differently. Michael opened the envelope as if he were seeing the contents for the first time. He flipped through the pages quickly and slid them toward me. "Nothing complicated," he said. "Just need your signature here." "It's just routine banking paperwork." Routine. That word nearly made me smile. Because by then I knew enough to hear the pressure hidden inside soft language. I picked up the pen, and both of them relaxed. Just a little. That broke my heart more than I expected, because it meant they really had measured me. My grief, my trust, my habit of keeping peace, my willingness not to make things harder. They believed they knew exactly what kind of woman I would be in that moment. And they were right about who I had been. just not about who I still was. My hand stopped. Not shaking, not dramatic. It just stopped. I set the pen down and said, "Before I sign anything, I think we should talk." The room changed immediately.
Yeah.
No one raised their voice,
Yeah.
but the air changed. Michael stiffened, Lauren straightened. It was still their kitchen. No, our name. But it was no longer their script. I slid the paper back across the table. This says Trust Asset Reallocation Authorization. No one spoke for a moment. Emily looked up briefly, sensed something in the adult voices, then went back to her homework. Michael cleared his throat. "It's just moving some funds around. Moving them where?" I asked. He glanced toward Lauren. "It's just restructuring." "For who?" I asked quietly. Lauren stepped in. "We're just trying to make things easier for the family." I looked at her. "Which family?" That landed harder than I expected, because for the first time, neither of them could hide behind the language they had been using for months. Michael tried again. "Mom, nothing suspicious is happening here." "That may be true," I said. "Then help me understand why a transfer of this size was requested without my knowledge." Lauren said I might be misunderstanding something. I held up a hand. "I'm not accusing anyone yet. I'm asking something very simple." I looked at Michael. "How much money is this transfer moving?" His jaw tightened. "That isn't the point. It is to me." He hesitated. Then he said the number. Even though I already knew it, hearing him say it aloud changed something in the room. Now the scale of it had sound. Lauren quickly stepped back in. "Michael has been handling things because you've been going through so much." There it was again, the same gentle argument, the same soft frame. "You are vulnerable. You need help. This is for your own good." For months, that logic had shaped my place in the house. Now I looked at her calmly. "I appreciate help," I said. "But help is not the same thing as deciding for me." Then I looked back at Michael. "I spoke with Charles Whitaker." That was the real break.
Wow.
The silence that followed felt like something heavy dropping between us. Lauren's face lost color first, then Michael's. For the first time since Arthur died, I saw my son look genuinely unsure of himself. "You spoke with Whitaker?" he said.
Yes.
"Yes." "Why?" he said. He didn't like that. I could see it in the way his shoulders changed. Lauren said again that I was taking this the wrong way. I kept my voice calm, then answered me clearly. "Did you submit this transfer request expecting me to see it for the first time tonight?" Michael said nothing. I asked another question. "Did you explain to me before today that a transfer of this size required my approval?" Still nothing. Then he said he had not wanted to make me anxious before the paperwork was ready. That told me everything I needed to know. He had waited for the document to do part of the work for him. He thought if it reached me finished,
Yeah.
if the process already felt underway,
Yeah.
I would sign rather than slow the room down. And suddenly, the sentence at dinner came back to me. "You eat for free. You eat for free here." That was the frame.
Yeah.
Not mother, not equal,
Yeah.
not someone to be fully told the truth.
Yeah.
A burden to be managed,
Yeah.
a signature to be obtained. And once I saw that clearly, something in me stopped negotiating. I said very quietly, "I am not signing this." No one moved. Then Michael asked, in a voice that was trying very hard to stay calm, "What happens now?" And I said, "Now we tell the truth."
What changed in your life after that night?
Small things first. Real things. I told Charles Whitaker the next morning that I wanted every document sent directly to me. Not through Michael, not through the house, to me. I read everything myself after that. I asked the second question, then the third, and my language changed. I stopped saying whatever works best when it didn't work for me. I stopped thanking people for access that should never have been theirs to control. I stopped confusing calm with safety.
What do you wish you had trusted sooner?
My discomfort. Not panic, not fear, my discomfort. Because there is a kind of discomfort that is not confusion, it is recognition. The tightening in your chest when something is being moved too quickly. The moment a soft tone is asking for more trust than the room has earned. The feeling that your gratitude is being used to hurry you past your own understanding. It's corrosive. I wish I had trusted that sooner. Because older parents are taught to stay easy, stay grateful, stay quiet. And sometimes all of that training makes it harder to notice when the line is already moving.
And what is dignity to you now?
Quieter than I used to think. Not a speech, not a scene. Sometimes dignity is reading the page. Sometimes it is asking where the decision began. Sometimes it is saying, no, not like this. And sometimes dignity is simply refusing to help the line move any farther.
So before we close, for the person listening right now who may still be in the early stage of something they haven't fully named,
The person telling themselves it is probably nothing, or that they are too sensitive, or that they should just be grateful and keep the room easy.
what would you leave them with?
Trust yourself sooner, not blindly, not cruelly, not in panic, but with respect. If something in you keeps going quiet in the wrong way, that matters. If the same person keeps saying, don't worry about it, while your access gets smaller and your role gets blurrier, that matters. If your gratitude is being used to hurry you past your own understanding, that matters. And if the line has already started moving, do not wait until it becomes a crisis before you stop it. It is always easier to keep a line from moving than to recover it after everyone in the room has grown used to your silence.
What is one line older parents should never let others quietly redraw for them?
The line between being loved and being managed. It changed both. Michael and I spoke more honestly after that. Not perfectly, not painlessly, but more honestly. And that mattered to me. Because I did not want revenge, I wanted truth. And I wanted whatever remained of love to stand on truth, not assumption. I still grieve that he said it, but I no longer grieve in confusion.
That feels like a very different kind of ending.
Because sometimes the deepest loss begins long before the money, long before the document, long before the signature. It begins the moment a person starts getting smaller and the room starts calling that love.
Then maybe that is where we leave it. Not with revenge, and not with a neat ending, but with a line worth protecting, the line between being loved and being managed. Because the deepest losses often begin long before the paperwork. They begin the moment a person starts getting smaller, and the room starts calling that love. And I want to leave you with one final question. When a child says something like that to a parent, is it a moment of anger? If this story stayed with you, please like the video, subscribe to the channel, and share it with someone who may need to hear it.
Or does it reveal the truth that had already been living underneath the family for a long time?
If stories like this speak to you, please like the video and subscribe to the channel. I would truly love to know who was here with us tonight. The stories they shared, the insights they offered, it's all so compelling.